Right, I was out mowing hay the other day and I broke the end sickle section on the mower. This is one of them double sections, but if that isn't on there, it always plugs on the end. So, and it was a weird thing. I mean, for somehow I picked up the hook end of a bungee cord. Just that, the bungee cords they break, the tarp straps, and it's a hard steel, and it snapped that whole end off. So I figured, well, I'll run in town and get another one and a spare. It was funny. I'd been in town not that long ago, and things seemed to be fairly normal. But now I get in there, and people are once again in a kind of a panic about this virus thing. Though I have no clue as to why. I thought that had kind of gone away, or the fear had gone away. But evidently, somehow or another, they got it all turned up again. It isn't like people are dropping dead in the street, but yet they want to act that way, Because here I was running into stores that just less than a week ago were doing normal business, and now there's a lot of, well, you got to have a mask to come in, and that sort of thing. And I tell you, they didn't have anything I needed that bad that I was going to wear a mask to go in there. It surprised me because I thought they had got over that. So evidently, I don't watch local news. Honestly, the only news I ever watch is RT America. They're the only real news. The rest is all got to slant this way or another. So RT is the place to, if you really want to know what's going on. But I don't know what local news goes on because I don't really care. So evidently something has come up that got all these people in a panic again. But the news media is good about building this sort of thing up. It gives them something to do. So, oh boy, and especially with the election coming. But I go into Fleet Farm and here, at the worst of this, there was maybe 75% of the people wearing masks. Now it's up to like 95. And I was seeing a hell of a lot of people wearing a face shield. Now this must be the new thing. Next is going to be some kind of scuba gear or space helmets or something. I don't know. It isn't like the cases have jumped up. But it was good to see that the people who weren't wearing the masks, and just to completely ignore this, are normal working people who got things they got to do. As people doing construction and this sort of thing, they don't have time to play around with that foolishness. They're just going about their business, getting what they need, and kind of laughing behind their back at the idiots running around. It was funny. But like I say, it isn't like people are, like there's been this great rash of people getting this. But then I noticed too, as I was leaving town, then here was one of these testing facilities set up in this church parking lot. They had all these tents and all these people walking around in the directions, you drive to and you go, and all this. Not a soul in there except for the people working in there. Nobody was going in there getting tested. It was a total waste of effort. But evidently this is important to people to have this facility there. I imagine there's some kind of federal funding or something came for this, so all right, we'll set up the testing. Not a soul there. But I can't see the point, of getting tested for something when you have no reason to believe you have been exposed to this, or the likelihood is so slim. But I think that's the problem. Is now they're doing a lot of testing. A lot of these come back as a positive, so it jacks the numbers up. Just like they play with the death rate. All these people are dying, and then it turns out, well, no, actually, you got shot or killed in a motorcycle accident, this sort of thing. But they count it as a coronavirus just to jack them numbers up there. I swear that's why, when they talk about South Dakota's got them low numbers, okay, they're being honest. They're not jocking around the numbers, making them sound like they're worse than they are. But that's a big part of it is the hospitals. They're encouraged to do that in a lot of places to make them some numbers sound impressive. Anyway, so when I got in there and I see all these idiots running around with face shields on and stuff like that, I really don't want to go back there unless I have to. So like I said, I bought extras of these so I don't have that come up again, though I can't imagine there's that many type straps floating around out there. But then I was racking my brain thinking, okay, what could I possibly need so that I can at least not go back for another month? So I was buying stuff like spare batteries for my camera. I use those Energizer Max lithium, and they really last. The only thing about them is they last, and boom, they're dead. There's no warning there. They go dead real quick, so I don't want to run out of them, so I bought a bunch of them. They're expensive, but they're worth it. So I had those. Weird things like chalk for a chalk line. I've got enough, but I wanted to make sure, like I say, you don't want to run short of that sort of thing. So anyway, I stocked up. I spent like a couple $100, and it was all weird, piddly stuff, but stuff that I don't want to have to make another trip for, because I really don't want to go back there. It's just craziness going on for no real reason. Whenever you see bizarre behavior like that, you just want to stay away. People are nuts, they'll go along with this stuff. Like this whole with the face shields and all this stuff. It's almost impossible to communicate with people when they're all bundled up like that. I know even in the checkout line, the checkout girl was wearing a mask, and she's muttering and mumbling. I have no idea what the hell she's talking. I'm kind of guessing at what she's saying. That's not a good deal. But I think we're cruising for another lockdown for some reason. In fact, I read someplace where they think, yep, that's what we need to really fix the economy, is another good lockdown. How in the hell this works, But boy, they really like that idea. It's mostly the liberal side of the states, the East Coast and West Coast, they love the idea of a lockdown. And the mandatory mask, where they want to fine people for wearing a mask. Like right now, in certain states, if I wasn't wearing a mask, I'd get like a $250 fine. It's funny. But when people go along with something like that, it always makes me think, well, I don't know, this will probably get me, you always get in trouble when you talk about this, but like when they were rounding up the Jews during the Holocaust, putting them on trains, and people, later they say, well, why did people go along with this? You're going to certain death, why don't, put up a fight, why don't you work against, they say, how could people do that? I tell you, people are sheep. They will go along with the program. the authority says do this, okay, don't question it. Just blindly go ahead. I think a big part of this is they don't want to open the schools, and we're edging up on that. They really want to keep them shut down and do the online stuff, which really doesn't work. I guess I was going to go and do a video especially on this, but I guess I'm in the mood. I'll go into it right now. Back when I was in grade school, we had these little two-room schools. A lot of that. Ours was two-room. There was a hell of a lot of little one-room schools out in the country, but our school district, we had pretty good income from, good tax base, so they built a nice two-room school. Or it was more than 2 rooms, but there was 2 classrooms, let's say. There was a big room and a little room, both exactly the same, one mirror image of the other, but up to 4th grade you were in one room, then 5th to 8th you were in the big room. So we had 2 teachers. And this worked really well, because part of it was, like you were all in this classroom, but then she would call you up to the front, the different grades, and you would do your lessons, and then you would go back, and then the next class would go up. It would go work like that. But the advantage in that is that you always knew what was coming for you next year. And most of the time, by the time you got to the next year, you already caught on to this from watching the class before you when they were doing their lessons. It worked very well. I actually went through the 8th grade. I was the last grade to graduate, 8th grade out of that school. They shut the school down after that. And there was usually like 4 or 5 kids in each class. I think it was 1 or 2. I had 1 kid in a grade, But it worked very well. But after that, to go to high school, I had to go to a bigger school. And the funny thing was, when I went to that school, it was really easy going, because in our little school, we had already learned all this stuff. And I mean, learned it. We just weren't attending classes. We were learning. So when I got this big school, I just breezed through that. It was not a problem. The study part of the thing wasn't a problem. I already knew all that stuff. And much more, because at that time I had a sister that was going to college, and I was already, I read all the time, and I was already reading all her books that she had got from her college classes in my spare time, so I was way ahead on the study part of the thing. To me, it was, going to a bigger school, it was weird, because all of a sudden you have to deal with all these strangers that, like in our little school, I was related to half of the people in the school. And all of a sudden you're dealing with a lot of city kids in this bigger school, and their interests were altogether different. It was very much the whole sports thing. And we played sports for game, for fun. We weren't into this seriously. And this whole basketball obsession, well, we've never even played basketball. That was not something, we never even had a hoop thing set up. And all of a sudden this stuff was very important to them. It just wasn't important to me. And to this day, I still have no interest in sporting games. This stuff doesn't appeal to me. And I was surprised, when you got to the bigger school, all of a sudden, they always stress sportsmanship. But I know the first time we were playing a ball game or something in here, where one team was heckling the other team, when somebody's batting and they're heckling them. That was unheard of for us. And all of a sudden, to me, it just seemed rude. I mean, these people were heckling each other. People who took this way too seriously. It was just a game, but they were all wound up. And to this day, when I see all these professional like basketball players and baseball players that are making huge amounts of money, behaving very badly, it never ends well for them. I mean, they always have miserable lives. Well, they live high on the hog and have a miserable life. With more money than to do it. I always thought a game was a game. Well, anyway. Now when they're talking about wanting to do the school things online, I remember back when I was I think I was at the point where I went into the big room in 5th grade. That was when the NET, National Educational Television, became a thing. So we were a fairly wealthy school district, so, if this was a thing that you had to have television, they got us a television. Old black and white Zenith. And they were having these, we were going to be hip. We had these art classes that would come on this television. And I remember sitting there watching that thing, and they had a goldfish tank. And until the show started, to kill time, you were watching this damn goldfish tank. For like 5 minutes, you were watching this goldfish tank. And then here would come on this art show. Never learned nothing from that art show. We could, before that, I mean, we'd monkey around, do our little art projects. And yeah, you'd learn something there. It was a hands-on deal. To watch somebody, talking about art, it was a waste of time. As most of that stuff, like now, the online learning, I mean, the kids, they try to make it like a game. They find it entertaining. They don't really learn anything from it. Kids don't learn that way. Kids learn by doing a thing, and handling things. And, that's just how they learn. The online stuff really isn't going to cut it. But that is what they're pushing for, especially the teachers' union. Now it's funny because like 20 years ago, I knew she became the head of the teachers' union in the state. And I was talking to her the one time, and she was quite distressed because, you would think the teachers' union would be about educating, but she said, it had gotten to be all politics. They were trying to become a powerful force in politics. In education, that didn't matter. She was a little upset about that, and I could see the point, But now they've got a lot of power, in theory. And they really don't want to teach. They want to do the online stuff. There's teachers that want to teach. And the students that want to go to school. But all this political crap is keeping them out of school. So when I look around the country and I see all these little one-room schoolhouses that are sitting empty, and church basements and there are places where teachers who want to teach could teach students who want to learn and not rely on this online stuff. Because I tell you, it just works a lot better. These bigger schools, like when our little school closed down, the bigger schools were always after trying to consolidate, trying to bring in, because there was money that came with these new students, So the schools kept getting bigger and bigger, and the little schools kept disappearing. But all these towns around here have got little schools sitting in them that I really think they should just fire them up again. I know I heard from somebody who said a lot of the the older teachers that have been around for a long time, they really aren't into all this stuff. A lot of them are taking retirement or early retirement, and instead of working for the public school system, are starting their own little schools or tutoring where they can actually teach again instead of working off of this where they can educate them again. I mean, there's a certain satisfaction in that because there's some of these teachers now that honestly are just a waste of time. They're doing more harm than good, and that's sad to see. But you see the result, like all these protesters, these peaceful protesters. That was funny today because I saw here where these peaceful protesters are like suing the city of, I think it's Seattle, or maybe it was Portland. But they're suing the city because they're upset they had to shell out money to buy protective gear to protect them from these horrible police that are torturing them, So they want money to pay for their gas masks and God, it's funny. It's just bizarre, but these are the people that you get in this kind of education system. You got to get back to these small schools again. It's sad when I see them sitting out in the country because a lot of these small schools, in fact I got a picture of one that's local here that I'll put on the thumbnail. They're still in good shape. They're ready to go. You got teachers locally that'll gladly teach them. Fire them babies up again. Because the schools are still sitting there, but they use them now for like town halls and stuff. But it's still, the kids are going to get a lot better education that way. But to think you're going to do this online, that isn't going to work. But that's what the teachers union is pushing for. Well, I'm going on. Anyway, I got stocked up now for a while, so we won't have to deal with that craziness. But go in for one thing, and I come back with this damn receipt. And normally I'm shopping bargains. I didn't find many bargains. I was buying stuff that I was going to need. But in the whole thing, I saved $2.20. That ain't my normal kind of shopping. But it'll keep me out of there for a while because I really, it's getting pretty sad. It was funny to see that testing facility sitting there, nobody going in. But honestly, like I say, there's just nothing going on here. But I can see that they're really cruising to shut this whole operation down again. Things were opening up, but then they start this testing. And the thing is, it isn't like more people are catching something. There's a lot of people that they're testing now that if they test positive, like I say, a lot of false positives, but there's a lot of people who perhaps have traces of this virus in their system, but they didn't even realize it. It had no effect on them. This isn't the big thing. It isn't like some black plague that's going to wipe out humanity. It's just another little thing that goes around. And I know I read someplace where they said this isn't going away, that it'll be like the common cold that is there all the time. You never get rid of it. It just keeps turning up. But it's not that big a deal. But they want to make it a big deal. I don't know why. I have an inclination as to why, but I think we're cruising to a shutdown again, and the ponies came home. But I really, when you get to the point where you're wearing face shields and stuff, that's just disturbing. I mean, the masks are bad enough, but people with the gloves on, and then I walk outside of a store and I see, a garbage can full of masks and gloves where people wore them in the store. Then they got to take them off. And they're constantly going through these masks and stuff. It's a world that is getting kind of weird. Not my kind of thing. I got to stay away from it.